enjoy that the red light is still very much visible even through this grippy sock. Hello. This is a 15-year-old podcasting microphone that has been in my closet for approximately 15 years. There is only one setting that seems to still work, and that's this one. And the sock is not required for functionality, but I decided to do it because I tend to be a loud bitch who makes sound barrier breaking mouth sounds, which is not evidenced by the weird ASMR voice I'm currently using. You're welcome for that. I just don't want to blow out the mic or for my neighbors to hear me talking to myself, even though I do that all the time, 24/7 really, assuming I talk in my sleep. I'm also not going to edit this, so if it looks like I'm editing it, it's because I'm pausing it, which I guess, is it editing? Can you edit live? Is that still considered editing? I'll fix it in present. How's this? Is this a better shot? Not really. But you can see... Oh, why do I suddenly not know where things are behind me just because it's reversed? You can't see my vacuum, so that's pretty cool. Hello. By the way, I'm probably going... Well, I shouldn't say probably. I might post this publicly, so if you want to say things in the comments, please remember that it is publicly available. Or not. Maybe it's not. Just check the little thingy, and if it looks like a little chain link, then only you can see it, and everyone else who resides on our corner of the internet. I wanted to give some suggestions, or I don't even know if I would call them suggestions. I just wanted to list some things that I like, because they're good. And my goal kind of was to list... This fucking sock is out of fucking pocket, dude. This sock is out of pocket. It's out of socket, one might say. What was I talking about? Am I really genuinely committed to not editing? Also, why does the pause... Okay, this is gonna fuck me up. The pause button looks like a pause button even if I have or have not clicked it, and there doesn't appear... Oh, there's the indication that I'm recording. I'm going to have to pay slightly different attention than I was expecting to, and I resent that. I'm also pausing to drink my chai because I won't put you through that. This is not ASMR, and I do not understand the appeal of mouth sounds. As soon as I say mouth sounds... Oops, I stopped the recording on accident. Now I have to fucking put it into an editor. Oh my god, because I'm not starting over. Okay. My commitment to not trying very hard is astounding, especially considering my inability to commit to anything else. Okay. My goal, generally speaking, was to list off some things that I like that are also not necessarily super accessible, because I enjoy trying hard to like things. It turns out the harder something is to enjoy, the more I want to. For instance, like recording myself. I don't particularly enjoy this. And I've had a really profound resistance to it for the totality of the time I have owned this probably now piece of shit microphone. And so I guess I'll just do that now. It's so fucking easy now, dude. Oh my god, OBS? Turns out, not complicated. Not complicated at all. I say that now, it's gonna be so funny when none of this records properly. Okay, I'm gonna pause. Is this good? Is this good editing? When I say I'm gonna pause multiple times before pausing. I just remembered that I paused it when I was mid-laugh, so that's gonna be an interesting present edit point. things that are not necessarily easily accessible, but that I enjoy very much. Some of them probably will be pretty accessible because it's not a hard and fast line. Much like intentions, any rules or boundaries I set for myself immediately ruin me. So there are none. But I would like to highlight things that people might not necessarily come across in their TikTokery, etc. Things that don't hit the algo. And I'm going to start with books because I'm the least comfortable trying to talk about books, considering I barely read them for most of my adult life. I like to just make everything impossible for myself. You're welcome. But actually, you're welcome, because that means I'm not going to put this on the internet. And that's a gift to us all. I have been moderately obsessed with Robert Aickman lately. And if you don't know who Robert Aickman is, it's like you're not even on TikTok. By the way, if it is not already apparent, I have scripted nothing, and I regret that deeply. So Robert Aickman is not on TikTok. I'm sorry that I lied to you earlier, but I'm also not sorry at all. Robert Aickman wrote a handful, or I guess more than a handful, around 50, I think, short stories. And so he was born in 1914, died in 1981, and a lot of these short stories take place around the period right after World War II. Not all of them. These are not really necessary things for you to know about the man. He called this, he didn't coin the term weird fiction, I don't think. I think he called it strange fiction. And this is kind of like, it's kind of horror adjacent, particularly at the time. What was more popular were traditional ghost stories. Aickman said, fuck that, I'm gonna make you feel weird and uncomfortable existentially, but not really tell you what's going on. And I love that. It's actually been a running theme for the last several years of my life, where almost all of the fiction I absorb is fucked up. We've got unreliable narrators, we've got recursiveness. I have looked this up before and I cannot recall which one it is. I'm gonna go with recursivity because it's more fun to say. Or just a general sense of dreamlike dissociation. Dissociation's not quite the right word. If you're looking to get into Robert Aickman, the first story I read, it was actually several years ago, I think it was 2021, when I got through this fucking monstrosity of an anthology? Compendium. The Weird, it's called. It's a compendium of strange and dark stories, weird fiction, spanning, I think, 110 years. I can't recall when it starts, but it's like basically one story every year for a century, or potentially a little more than a century. And amongst those is the story by Robert Aickman called The Hospice. And it is one of the reasons I purchased a physical copy of this book. I had it on Kindle, and I actually bought another copy as well for someone else that I gave to him. But and then I bought this one. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna get this, it has to be a hardback just to hold it together. It took me about 6 months, maybe longer, to read this when I finally read it. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it's one of the stories that stuck in my head so hard that I wanted a copy of this book in physical form, because I sometimes want to reference stories in here, and it's annoying to do on the Kindle app on my phone. Also just generally, the electronic copies we have through subscriptions like Amazon and whatever. I don't know, man. I don't trust that we get to keep it for very long. But yes, anywho, can I pause this again? We're doing it. We're gonna pause it, and we're gonna say we're gonna pause it. Anyway, the story The Hospice was published, I think, several different times. You don't have to buy a giant tome of weird fiction to read it. I'm sure you can even find it somewhere on the internet if you try. But after reading that story and someone else mentioning Robert Aickman on a podcast that I listened to, which I will also bring up later in this, what's fixing to be a real fucking long video, that person mentioned Robert Aickman and described him as his stories as something of a tragedy of manners, which I feel like very much fits. There's a passivity to his protagonists that is deeply frustrating, but also, at least for me, kind of relatable. And they're all very fucking British. And the interesting thing is, like, a lot of these stories are pretty explicitly written in the time shortly after World War II, but I don't really feel that way until he says something about the time period he's in, or there's some sort of like technology in the story that I didn't expect. You know, I'll be picturing people in like 1800s garb, and then suddenly somebody drives up in a VW Bug, and I'm just like, oh, right. Why did I think this was from the 1800s? Nothing indicated that except everything. Everything about his writing indicates this strange, just antiquated feeling. It's I don't know how to sell you Robert Aickman. It's good. How about that? Let's stop there. Let's actually not stop there, because I am moderately obsessed with Robert Aickman and I want to share some of my thoughts with you. Not even necessarily on the stories themselves. I do want to kind of leave that as a mystery in case you want to read them. But the strangeness of his approach to things, both in his fiction and in seemingly his real life. There's a biography that was written and published about him a couple years ago, I think 2022, and that person also has a blog where he kind of shoved some of the things that didn't really fit into the book. I have a copy of the book, but I got an electronic copy because I have never once in my life read a biography cover to cover. So I didn't want to do the world the disservice of buying a paper copy of a book I will never read, but I wanted to buy it because I relied on this person's takes on Robert Aickman and research, I should say, mostly research on Robert Aickman for my weird, awkward deep dives into him. Same person, same people, perhaps I think two people worked on the book, put out a documentary on YouTube a few years ago, which I will link in case you're interested in watching a documentary about someone you've never read any of his stories, probably. I don't know you. I just don't feel like the crossover demo is going to be very strong for this one. Or maybe it will be. I don't know. What was I talking about? There's going to be a lot of that sentence in here. Pause to think. Okay. Am I ready to form a coherent No, I wasn't. I wasn't ready to form a coherent sentence. Okay, so if I had to describe the average Robert Aickman protagonist, it would be, I would say that they are British, weirdly antiquated within whatever time period they exist in, extraordinarily passive, and sexually repressed. And I feel like I would use those exact same terms to describe Robert Aickman himself. And it's interesting because it's hard to even really tell when he is critiquing passivity through these characters and when he is simply writing what he thinks that he would do. You know what, the passivity part, I don't know how passive he was, because he did do a lot of shit and piss a lot of people off, so maybe he's not that passive, But he also was kind of intermittently a supporter of certain fascist ideologies, sort of. I don't know, man. He's a weird fucking guy. Um, the thing I find most interesting about these stories is that nothing is really direct. Well, there is one story in particular that is very, very explicitly about boning. Like, it's just like a woman getting stabbed with a lot of swords as a show, and then like the main character hiring her to have sex with him. It's just very, very on the nose. Most of them are not, although they do sometimes have pretty explicit, like, I don't know, sexual imagery, sort of. You can sometimes tell, is what I'm saying. Uh, and for it, but he has this way of kind of getting at the psychology of repression. His characters don't feel like real people to me. They don't feel realistic, but their repression feels realistic to me. As an example, there is one, I'm not going to name the story because, again, I want you to experience these things on your own if you choose. There is a story wherein someone's body is changing in a way that is quite visible, and their reaction to this is to start eating in the dark so they don't have to look at their hands. If I recall correctly, that one is written in a first person. No, maybe it's not. I don't think that one is first person. It just kind of feels first person. I'll have to find it later, but and it's said like kind of very matter of factly. It's not like, to avoid thinking about my feelings on how my body is changing without my consent, I'm going to not look at it. No, it's just like, and then I started eating in the dark, or and then he started eating in the dark, or whatever, to not look at his hands, and it's kind of just like moves along from there. That's the part that I find fascinating. These characters, but at the same time, it always feels like they're careening into a world that they don't understand, that they're not prepared for, that could kill them or destroy them on some fundamental level. And so often they pull away from that world before it can fully consume them. And I am left with a feeling of disappointment for them. Not always, but sometimes. It feels like they're getting close to something, but they're too fearful or repressed or attached to the world as they currently know it to really follow that thread. And sometimes it feels like that was a mistake, that it's saying, leap into the unknown, even if it destroys you. But not always, and I don't know. I find it all very interesting. Robert Aickman, as a human being, is an unreliable narrator of his own experiences, which I find very fascinating as well. That was a pause to swallow, just FYI. I forgot to announce it beforehand. That was bad form. He, for instance, wrote an autobiography, labeled an autobiography, not a memoir, and I believe it was 2 books total, that in which he did not mention his wife of many years and, I believe, business partner. I think she also did the business with him. Sorry, that sounded bad. Honestly, I don't even know if they did the biz, you know what I mean? Because this man is so fucking repressed. He did apparently at one point insist that his parents only had sex one time, and that was to conceive him. And although you might hear that kind of story from other people as well, and most of the time it's not true, with him, he knows that it is true. You can trust that that's the truth. This is the kind of guy we're dealing with here. He failed to mention his wife in any capacity, like her existence in this autobiography. One thing that I found on that person's blog that I mentioned, I'm so sorry that I did not pull up any names of any people. I promise I will link things. He wrote about something Robert Aickman wrote about his favorite movie. Again, I will find the name later. I believe Blue is in the name. You know what? Let's do it. Let's pause, okay? I just looked at the timestamp on this. I might leave it at Robert Aickman today and then do other people later or other things. So The Blue Light was the name of the movie. It's his favorite movie. Came out in 1932. Presumably he's seen it many times. But when he wrote about it, he wrote about an ending that functionally did not happen in the movie. And the ending was altered such that a character, rather than being complicit in something bad happening, was completely unaware of it, I guess, until it was too late to fix. And we're talking like the main male protagonist in this movie. It just drastically changed kind of the intent of the end, as far as I can understand, or at the very least the characterization of the people involved. And he wrote about this ending that he, functionally imagined about this movie. And what I find so interesting reading his stories, reading the way that he, from my perspective, captures the experience of repression, of dissociation from your own life, your own body, your own memories. How do you do that while also being that, you know? It's so fascinating to me. How do you accurately capture that? Because, like, as a person, I wouldn't say that he's super interesting to me. She says, after talking about him for 15 minutes. But, like, okay, we've all met this guy, right? We've all met somebody who just kind of bullshits. One story I did not tell because I didn't have the details pulled up, and I still don't, is about him. I guess he was going to the US to receive some sort of award, but on his visa paperwork, he said that he was going there for a book tour, which was not true. And so I guess they rejected his visa paperwork. But this is where I wanted to pull up the details because I got confused here. I guess he went to the US for the, like, I don't know. It sounds like he went to the award thing, but he didn't actually show up to it. He just spent the entire weekend in his hotel because he was so embarrassed about getting caught in this lie, a lie that he had apparently also told some of his friends. And so for that to get called out as fake was so embarrassing to him, he didn't even go to this event to receive his award. I feel like that's kind of an emblematic thing of this guy, this type of guy, this guy that we've all met one of. At least I've met maybe more than my fair share. And that guy is not super interesting to me. That guy is very insecure and in denial, and will quite possibly never actually process any of the things that make them do this. And the more they do this, the more entrenched it becomes, because the more lies you tell, or pseudo lies, the more impossible it becomes to admit to yourself that you're lying, because then you have to deal with the person who made up all those lies, you know? I say this as a youthful compulsive liar. What is surprising about him is that he managed to write about this at all. That he has protagonists who, at least sometimes, are very explicitly denying their own realities, and for him to do that in a way that feels authentic to me. I mean, honestly, when I've known people who are that guy, they don't, my God, how dare the neighbors enjoy themselves? Anyway, in my experience, that guy not only does not know how to write about this from an authentic place, but rarely really tries to put anything out there to that degree, especially if there is a level of vulnerability within it. In my experience, guys like that guy will always be writing a novel but never completing it. They will know in their heart of hearts, which they share with everyone, that they would be the best stand-up comedian in the world as soon as they actually go on stage, but they don't. So for him to not only write these stories and publish them and capture this feeling, nope, I said not only, but then I just said all of the things. That I didn't add the but in there, like the but also or whatever. I know how sentences work. I think we're all in agreement there. Just like how I know how podcasting works, and also where to put socks. Yeah, that is the fascinating thing to me about him. And it makes me wonder how he wrote these things, in what state of mind he was. I think that was grammatically correct. In what state of mind he was? It sucks. I don't like hearing it, but I think it's correct. Did he have to dissociate while writing and then dissociate from his own stories? No, I don't know. He thought he was a genius. And in certain ways, I can't disagree. He also dedicated most of his life to saving the canals in England, and the UK in general, I suppose, which is cool, I guess. I have a lot more thoughts on that, but listen, dude, I've been talking about Robert Aickman for 23 minutes. I've been talking about Robert Aickman for 23 minutes. We can't keep doing this. I'm not going to call this like a list of things that I like. I'm going to call this the Robert Aickman podcast I did without writing anything down or opening any websites about it. You're welcome. Goodbye forever.